Keep yourself in the loop of everything football on the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast. The latest news on and off the field, be it college football, Big Ten, SEC, Big 12, Pac-12, ACC to the NFL. We've got you covered. Listen to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast.
GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I am your host, Andrew DeCino, and today, on this fine Tuesday, we have a spectacular show for you today. And we're going to be covering quite a plethora of different topics, okay? Starting with Bill Belichick. Bill Belichick apparently wanted out of New England a few years ago. And that story was released by Seth Wickersham, and it is now kind of bumping to the surface. And we will break that down. Coming up after that, we're going to be talking about another head coach who's just extended by the Pittsburgh Steelers. That is Coach Mike Tomlin. After that, we're going to talk about Tom Brady and why and how he hates the new rule change that was just passed. This was on the whole single-digit saga we broke down a couple of weeks ago. And then finally, the fourth and final segment, we have a little bit of fun. I'm going to give my way too early final standings in the AFC, breaking down each division and how the clubs will rank at the season's end after 17 regular season games. All right, well, first things first, we're going to jump right into segment one. So Bill Belichick wanted out of New England right after the Jimmy Garoppolo trade. So as we all know, and I've broken this down before for you, of course, New England won the Super Bowl in 2016. This comes off of Tom Brady's 4-game suspension, for which we're not going to get into. It was more of a witch hunt than anything else. Then the 2017 season comes around, and in Bill Belichick's mind, this is the transition season to bring, finally, Brady's last year. Garoppolo will come right in, and here we go. We're going to change quarterbacks and not miss a beat. That was Bill Belichick's plan. He was, regardless, after the 2017 campaign, going to move on from Tom Brady. And if we remember what happened in 2017, well, he went and signed Stephon Gilmore, a premier cornerback from the Buffalo Bills. And then he went and got Brandon Cooks, who had many 1,000-yard receiving seasons in a row. And then Tom Brady, what does he do? He goes on to win MVP that season. And of course, they end up losing to the Philadelphia Eagles in Super Bowl 52. However, Brady set postseason records in that Super Bowl, 505 yards, as we all know. But Bill Belichick wanted to go to Jimmy Garoppolo. He wanted, at the end of the season, regardless of Tom Brady won the Super Bowl, no matter what happened, he wanted to start that 2018 season with Jimmy Garoppolo as his starting quarterback. And Brandon Cooks was supposed to be the guy. Brandon Cooks was very young in his career back in 2017, 2018. That was supposed to be the guy that was going to be, Jimmy's running mate through all those years. Because they believed that, Brandon Cooks may not fit for the Tom Brady style of offense, but he'll sure fit for the offense we're going to try and run with Jimmy Garoppolo. That was their thinking. And on top of that, we're going to have Stephon Gilmore, one of the best defensive backs in the league now for Jimmy Garoppolo, too. So this all kind of came to a head middle to middle late of the 2017 regular season, when the trade deadline was approaching and Bill Belichick wanted to move on from Tom Brady and move on in the form of trading him. And, of course, we all know Robert Kraft, who rarely ever steps in situations like these when it comes to the personnel department, said, no, you're not going to trade the man who I treat like a son of mine, similar to the son I sit with in the press box, Jonathan Kraft, right next to me. He says, no, you're not going to trade Tom Brady. Are you kidding me? In fact, because of this, I don't know if there's enough room in town for both Brady and Garoppolo anymore. I mean, Garoppolo was drafted in 2014 in the second round, so now he was entering his 2017 with, of course, his fourth year, 14, 15, 16, 17. So at the end of 17, they were going to need to re-sign Garoppolo or do something with him. And, of course, if Belichick got his way, we can only surmise that the strategy he wanted to go with was trade Brady, re-sign or extend Garoppolo, and then that's what they were going to do. And then, of course, ride the ship with Garoppolo. And the reason he wanted to trade Brady, of course, because Belichick is always trying to think 3 steps ahead. Well, if you don't trade Brady, and Brady concludes the 2017 regular season, because it's not like you're going to bench or cut or release Brady during the season. He was going to try and trade Brady so that he could extend Garoppolo during the season and not let him get to free agency, where he would probably have to pay a little bit of a premium for Garoppolo. Belichick was like, no, I'll extend him during the season while he is still under contract, before he has really started football games for this club. I see what he can do in practice. I know him more than anyone else. But if he hits free agency, I'm going to have to pay premium because they didn't cash in when I could have in terms of getting a better deal for Garoppolo. So we know Robert Kraft put his foot down, yada, yada, yada. Brady stays, wins MVP, loses in the Super Bowl. Garoppolo gets shipped out of town. And then the quarterback situation is just kind of Brady. And then besides him, there was really no one ever who was even considered a plan B. Because for the remainder of the 2017 season, it was Brian Hoyer. Then you bring in Danny Etling. Season following that, he converted to a wide receiver after playing quarterback. And then, of course, cut. Then you bring in Jarrett Stidham. That doesn't work out. You bring back Brian Hoyer after he goes on to Indianapolis. So there was never, ever a real backup quarterback situation like there was with Garoppolo. And then, of course, Belichick gets a little angry, throws a fit, gets rid of Cooks, doesn't re-sign Amendola, lets Hogan go, signs or drafts a running back in the first round who's had knee issues, drafts a wide receiver in the first round that was a bust, and really does not have any solution to the tight end position besides signing Ben Watson, who played on a torn Achilles all year, and that is what Belichick did in the personnel department. And I remember we talked a few weeks ago, Belichick is a head coach, great head coach, even better defensive mind, and on top of that, a fraction of what he is as a coach for his talent as personnel manager or GM. Bad at that. And rumor has it, the segment of this topic, Bill Belichick wanted out after the Jimmy Garoppolo trade. He wanted to leave. In fact, he threatened to go after the 2017 season. He talked with the Giants, reportedly. He talked with the Dolphins. Now, the Giants make sense. He was a defensive coordinator for the Giants. He was one of the minds behind beating the vaunted K-gun of the Buffalo Bills. Slowed them down. Well, of course, he had Lawrence Taylor with him in the Giants. And so Belichick's roots are tied with Parcells and will be tied with the New York Football Giants. So him talking with the Giants makes sense. And the Dolphins, too. Could you imagine that? He was receiving and fielding calls and even making calls to the Dolphins. Now, could you imagine Brady staying in the AFC East and now Bill Belichick as head coach of the Miami Dolphins and them going toe-to-toe 2 times a year? And thinking about, of course, the drastic change of events. When Brady left New England, and I will always revise that and say, was kicked out the back door of New England. It's like you offer your roommate who you've been living with for 20 years, had his own room, had a nice room, great room, nice mattress, good sheets, good blanket. You get to like the 20th year and you say, hey, we've had a great arrangement for the last 20 years. I've had a lot of success here. It's been great rooming with you. I still want a room with you, but I was thinking, if you move to the basement and sleep in the sewer water, and it's freezing cold during the nights, and in the summer you're going to be sweating your butt off, does that work for you? Come on. I want you here. Can't you see I want you here? I'm not telling you to go, but don't you... We could make this happen. Hey, it's on you for leaving. You had the choice to stay. I offered you these great accommodations in the basement, and it's your choice of leaving. And that's how it was with Brady in New England. And, of course, the New England fans was like, oh, Tom Brady left. And Belichick we trust. Well, and Belichick you shouldn't have trusted, as he went 7-9. And if Cam Newton is your quarterback, that's not going to drastically improve very much at all. Now, will it? So, of course, I always say Tom Brady forced out the back door. And it seemed like a lot of people at first were, Bill will make this work. We're still Bill F. Brady for leaving. He can go with Gronk and have a great time down in Tampa. We're going to still be the New England Patriots. And then that didn't work out. Now, what if it had been where Bill Belichick goes to Miami and Brady stays in New England? Because it seems as if, in reality, where Brady is in Tampa Bay, for example, I am the biggest Brady advocate. I would have gone with him anywhere. And it seems like near the end of the season, there are a lot of Patriot fans who are happy for Brady, rooting for him in the Super Bowl, rooting for him throughout the playoffs, rooting for him in his regular season games, too. Now, what would be the ratio of New England fans rooting for Bill Belichick to be a good head coach down in Miami? I think far less. If you think in terms of likability, obviously Brady wins that. I think fans would have much more of an allegiance to a quarterback rather than a head coach. But very interesting. We talk about Bill Belichick and how quiet he is all the time, whether it's in press conferences, not giving the media anything to work with all the time. And so then something like this comes out and you're like, wow, you're rehashing something from 3 years ago. Yeah, we're rehashing something from 3 years ago because you almost never hear this from Bill Belichick. You listen to his press conferences and probably the average person would be like, wow, he's such a jerk. He doesn't give off anything to the reporters. He's very cold, very stoic. But at the end of the day, Bill Belichick is a human with human emotions. And he has an ego especially. And he has an ego that probably was inflamed when he thought that either he was not getting enough credit for the success of 20 years, or his partner, Brady, was getting too much success. Because it never felt like these issues ensued because of the quarterback. It was never Brady saying, I need to prove it without Belichick. Belichick wanting to move on from Brady is Belichick wanting to prove it without Brady. None of this had to do with Tom Brady's ego. In fact, yeah, Tom Brady is, oh, shucks, gee whiz, and then sometimes he'll also tell you nothing during a press conference, and he seems like a little maybe uptight and reserved and fake, because he'll also give you nothing, and he'll put on the smile and be like, yeah, I'm not telling you anything, and I'm just a quarterback here and just going to go out and win games, and I don't care about stats, blah, 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 blah. And then you see him on the football field, and he's chasing after Tyrann Mathieu, barking at him. That's where you really see Tom Brady's true personality. But back to the gist of it, this happened not because of Tom Brady's ego. Remember, this happened because of Bill Belichick's ego. So could you imagine a situation in where Belichick did leave New England, and then he went to either, the Giants or the Dolphins, and we might still see Tom Brady in New England if Bill Belichick had gone? Because I do believe to an extent Brady did leave because he was not being helped out in New England, right? Bill Belichick wasn't going to give him the years that Brady wanted on the contract. The two misconceptions are, A, Brady left, and B, Brady wanted money. Neither of those things are true. The truth is he was forced out the back door, and he wanted years on his contract. Let's remember that. He wanted a guarantee that he could still play. He wanted belief that he could still play. And so Tampa Bay offered him 2 years. Perfect. Well, if Bill Belichick had left back in 2017, 2018, and someone else had assumed the roles of being a head coach, well, would they have offered Tom Brady years? I'm sure they would have, because I don't know anyone who would stand up to Tom Brady maybe the way that Bill Belichick would. And would they have gotten Tom Brady help on the offensive side of the football? Well, yes, if Bill Belichick is gone, then I assume Brady's voice gets a lot stronger in what they want for the personnel department. So then Brady has what he wants. He has the help, and he has the years on the contract. Brady is staying if Bill Belichick goes. So he would still be the quarterback here as we speak right now, interestingly enough. And what would have Bill Belichick's success been if he had left? Because at this point, we know what Brady's success is in Tampa Bay. His report card has flying colors. He, of course, went on an 8-game win streak to conclude the season, with wins coming against a top-ranked Washington football defense, a New Orleans Saints defense that have given Brady trouble twice prior that year, resulting in 5 interceptions thrown by Brady out of his 12. A team led by future Hall of Famer Drew Brees, who currently sits atop of several passing records in the NFL, in New Orleans, followed by a win up in the frozen tundra against the MVP, Aaron Rodgers. followed by a win against an MVP the year prior, Patrick Mahomes, the Super Bowl. Oh, well, I guess MVP 2 years prior. Super Bowl winner the year prior. He was trying to go back-to-back, belly-to-belly, as John Sterling would say. So we went through those 4 opponents. Of course, the Mahomes one being the Super Bowl championship. And so I saw a tweet out there from my buddy. I'll read you the tweet because there's just so many things wrong with this. Talking about Tom Brady. This is from Dylan Woods. Dylan Woods says, I hope it doesn't get lost in history that Tom Brady's only Super Bowl with the Buccaneers was by far his easiest. Cakewalk path, luck all around, and it was the defense and Todd Bowles that deserves most of the credit for shutting down KC. Kirk Cousins could have won it in Brady's spot. I replied saying what I basically said. He says, easy path was only directed at Washington football team, but Breeze was basically already retired, so he half counts too. Luck part was Rodgers. He threw like 2 or 3 picks in one game after throwing that many all season. Just like KC, defense deserves more of the credit. They bailed Brady out after he threw picks on back-to-back drives, plus the game ended on a penalty, which is lame as HE double hockey sticks. Well, how about Rodgers, the MVP, deciding not to scramble and pick up about 8 yards on a 3rd and goal? Right? Yeah, everyone says, well, why did they kick the field goal? Because he picked up no yards on 3 subsequent plays. And now you're facing a 4th and goal from about 8 yards to go. And those picks by Brady in the second half, 2 of them were pretty much punts. One came on a 3rd down and then pinned them inside the 20. Who cares? Another was tipped by Evans. It was a high ball, but not a terrible throw. So, listen, the defense does deserve credit. I said at the beginning of the season, I said that front 7 is awesome, and they were. And then as the season progressed, the secondary became actually pretty good. I think Antoine Winfield's a stud. So I'm not taking credit away from the defense, but in that Super Bowl, Tom Brady was awesome and did everything he had to do to win. And in the first half against Green Bay, and in the 3rd quarter, he did everything he had to do to win. Got them a gigantic lead. And then against New Orleans, he cashed in every single time. So, listen, no luck on this end. Defense deserves credit. Head coach Bruce Arians deserves credit. But in the next segment after commercial break, we'll talk about head coach Mike Tomlin, who was just re-signed by the Pittsburgh Steelers. How much credit does he deserve? We'll talk about that coming up next.
Are you looking for help for your fantasy football team? Check out the GSMC Fantasy Football Podcast. Get today's best advice on who to start, who to sit, even who you should draft. From sleeper picks to red-hot lineups, they got it all covered for you. That's gsmcpodcast.com/fantasy-football-podcast. We'll cover traditional leagues, dynasty, PPR, even IDP leagues. When you need fantasy help, there's just one show to hit up. Don't forget to like them on Facebook and follow them on Twitter. Visit gsmcpodcast.com for more info.
Hello and welcome back from break. it is time now for the second segment of the show, and that would be the Steelers are extending head coach Mike Tomlin. And this comes right after talking about the first segment of the show and the other head coach we were just talking about, Bill Belichick, and how he wanted out in New England a few years back. So the Pittsburgh Steelers, they extended Mike Tomlin on Tuesday, 3-year extension through 2024. And Art Rooney II said, "I am pleased to announce we have extended Mike Tomlin's contract through the 2024 season. Mike is one of the most successful head coaches in the National Football League, and we are confident in his leadership to continue to lead our team as we work to win another championship." So in the league, there are only 2 head coaches that have been with the same team actively longer than Tomlin, and of course, that is Bill Belichick and also Sean Payton. Tomlin joined the Steelers back in 2007. He has not had a losing record with the Steelers. He is 145, 78, and 1. He has won a Super Bowl. And, you know, the Steelers are a team that just don't have a lot of head coaches. Since 1969, Tomlin is just the third head coach for the Pittsburgh Steelers, the former 2 being Chuck Noll and then Bill Cowher. So they do not hire a lot of coaches. Now, do we think that this extension was justified? In my opinion, there are 2 lines of reasoning we need to take in order to answer that question. The first one is, how has the production been for the Pittsburgh Steelers over the last couple of years? Because we all know that they won the Super Bowl, against Arizona. This is Mike Tomlin, of course, back in the 2008 campaign. And that was Tomlin's second year with the Steelers. He won the Super Bowl. One of the younger head coaches in the league, I believe. So let's take a look at how the Steelers have fared in recent years. And we'll date back to last season. And last season, they got off to that hot 11-0 start and then finished the season 1-4. And then finished the 2020 campaign with a final record of 12-4. Yes, they won the AFC North, fending off the Cleveland Browns, but not for long, because then the Browns came in the wild card round and stomped them. Got off to a 28-0 lead in the first quarter. Everything went wrong for Pittsburgh that could have possibly gone wrong. And I think Alan Chris said it best. It was like the 20 years of playoff drought for Cleveland had just been pent up all those years, and then they were just letting it all out at once in that first quarter. Horribly miserable first quarter if you're a Pittsburgh fan. One of the happiest days of your life, I'm sure, if you're a Browns fan. It really was. And so then there are rumors of what's going to happen with Ben Roethlisberger, because Ben Roethlisberger, early on in his career, known for, he's Big Ben. He can take all these hits. He's got, he'll throw the ball 60 yards downfield, will hit you hard, where the Steelers were tough, were physical. And then that offense turned into like, we're going to throw the ball 3 yards past the line of scrimmage on all these crossers and play pretty good defense and just run over bad opponents. Their 11-0 record really only had 2 or 3 significant, meaningful wins. All the rest, I believe, were not as impressive. Let's just say that. So they went 12-4. All in all, a very unsuccessful season. You can't say going 11-0 and then going 1-5 down the stretch, if you include the wild card loss, was by any means a success. And what's the future like with Big Ben? You just don't know. What does he have left in the tank? Is he going to threaten to retire every season? He's in horrible shape. His arm's not very good anymore. So, and we'll rewind a year. 2019, they went 8-8. 2018, they went 9-6-1. No playoff appearances. 2017, they went 13-3. They got the first round bye. And then they lost to Blake Bortles and the Jaguars, 45-42. Embarrassing, some might say. Of course, you know, the Jaguars had that awesome defense, but if you're the Steelers, you have a first round bye, and then you're one and done to Blake Bortles. That's all I will say about that. 2016. Okay. They rattled off a couple playoff wins. They went 11-5, won the AFC North, won against, was it Matt Moore and the Dolphins in 2016? Not a real quarterback there. I remember was not playing for Miami. Then they won against the Chiefs in the divisional without scoring a touchdown. They won 18-16. No touchdowns scored for Steelers. And then they went into Foxborough and lost 36-17. In really a game that was not close at all. So, you know, they went to the AFC Championship game. So not bad. But if you think about it, that's the farthest they have gone dating back to 2010 since the Super Bowl against Green Bay. So in the Tomlin era, what has been the farthest they have gone? Well, in 2008, of course, they won the Super Bowl against Arizona. James Harrison was the Defensive Player of the Year. Santonio Holmes won Super Bowl MVP. Tomlin won Coach of the Year. Then they had the Super Bowl hangover in 2009. Then they lost the Super Bowl in 2010 to Aaron Rodgers. Troy Polamalu was Defensive Player of the Year. And since then, they have only gone to and lost an AFC Championship game in New England as their next highest playoff berth, or, you know, how far they have made it. Other than that, I see a lot of wild card losses. They lost to Denver, Tim Tebow in 2011. Lost to the Ravens in 2014 in the wild card. Bounced by the Browns in the wild card. One and done in 2017. So, now granted, I will say this for Tomlin. Not a losing season. He's gone 8-8, but not a losing season. And that in itself is impressive over the course of how many years now for Tomlin? Since 2007. Tally that up for me. I'm not great at math. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19, 20. 15 years. Something like that. 14, 15 years. I was counting on my fingers. So, yeah, it's impressive. Not a losing season. One Super Bowl win. Another Super Bowl loss. And several playoff appearances. But if you think, and this is a league, what have you done for me lately? They have not done anything for you lately. 2016 was the last time they won a playoff game. How about that? and it came against the Chiefs, where they didn't score a touchdown. So, yes, a lot of people say Mike Tomlin gets his guys ready to play. A team coach by Mike Tomlin will never, ever not be physical, not be ready to play, and not be coached up. He will get a lot out of his players no matter what. Tomlin can handle personalities, they say. You know, he dealt with Antonio Brown and Le'Veon Bell for all those years. Big Ben, I'm sure, is not the easiest personality to manage either. But he did it. And, you know, although they have had no playoff wins in, you know, since 2016, the Steelers aren't a team that are going to roll over and you say, wow, well, we got the Steelers this week. This is going to be easy. It's never going to be like that. And I agree, under Mike Tomlin, I don't think it'll be like that. I remember the games in which Big Ben might have been out, or Le'Veon Bell might have been out, or Antonio Brown might have been out. This is, you know, in their heyday from, you know, let's say 2013 to 2018, right? Those kinds of years when it was the triple Bs. Even when one of the Bs were out, or two of the Bs were out, I wouldn't be like, wow, this is going to be an easy game. Because they'd be physical. They'd be ready to compete. And if it's in Pittsburgh, those yellow towels would be waving all over the place. And I think that has that's a big Mike Tomlin effect right there. So, again, I said there's two components on what you should be thinking about when assessing whether to hire a new coach. What has the production been like? And what is the other option for you at head coach? And this goes into the Jim Harbaugh debate at Michigan. Everyone says, well, they need a new head coach at Michigan. Okay, really? Well, compare Harbaugh's years to Brady Hoke's years and tell me how much more competitive they have been with Harbaugh than Hoke. I'll tell you, it has been way, way, way more competitive under Harbaugh than Hoke. In fact, the biggest, what Hoke could put Michigan in the news for was playing guys with concussions. Harbaugh, at least, yeah, he'll be ranked. Will he lose to top 10 teams? Sure. Will he lose to Ohio State? Yeah, he will. But at least you have the hope that that could change. Because I do think that they'll put out competitive defenses. They'll put out a weirdly inefficient offense for the first couple weeks of the season. And then somehow that quarterback will look decently good. And they'll start pounding out about 4, 5, 6 wins in a row. Right up in time to play Ohio State when Michigan has 2 losses already. And you say to yourself, you start hyping yourself up because Michigan will be right around like ranked 8 through 12, somewhere in that range. And you're like, oh, shoot. They got 2 losses. If they could beat Ohio State here, watch out. And then they don't beat Ohio State. But they're much more competitive. They give you much more hope under Harbaugh than they do Hoke. And then the second component of that is, you want to fire Harbaugh? Who would you replace Harbaugh with? Same argument with Tomlin. You want to replace Tomlin? Who are you going to replace Tomlin with? Because if you fire Tomlin, Florio said it best, his phone will be ringing with other teams before he even walks out the door. He will have the cardboard box in his hand, carrying his things out the door when people will be calling him, asking him to coach their football team. That's who Mike Tomlin is. That is how long he would be unemployed for. Not very long. Not very long at all. So in my opinion, right, now the success hasn't been there in the past couple of years, as we already went over. But I don't think you're finding anyone to replace Tomlin. And then on top of that, you really want to let Tomlin walk out the door and then be snatched up a second and a half later? only for him to, make you eat your words. If you run into him down the line somehow. I've been told it's a long life. You never know who you're going to run back into again. Don't, wrong anyone or think you won't have to encounter them again, because you will. So this then begs the question. So Tomlin extended, of course, which I think is a good move, because you want to be competitive. And although they haven't won these playoff games or been back to a Super Bowl or even won a conference in the past decade, you look at how they've finished within the division: first, second, first, second, dating back to 2013. That's really good. That's really good. I think most teams, barring like 3 to 4, would have traded that for their last 9 years, 8 years, whatever it was. First and seconds only. I mean, the only team that could beat that was the New England Patriots, right? And they finished third last year. So good move by the Steelers extending Mike Tomlin. Now, how do we think the Steelers are going to fare in the 2021 year? And how about the 2022 year? And how about the 2023 year? Because those are all years that Mike Tomlin will be here for. And who will be playing quarterback? What point do you move on from Big Ben Roethlisberger? These are all questions you need to ask yourself. How far can you get with Ben Roethlisberger? Because I think this Steelers defense is good. I think it's great, in fact. I think TJ Watt is spectacular. And I think they're really figuring it out on the back end on defense as well. And I remember it's almost like a changing of the guard happened in 2018 when it came to that defense. And it might have been because of TJ Watt. Now, although they finished 9-6 in 2018 and they missed the playoffs, 2018 they are actually able to beat the New England Patriots, which they really have not been able to do like at all. I think they've maybe had 3 wins against Brady ever. And Brady might be like 8-3, 9-3, something like, maybe even more against him. And you'd always listen to these guys, break down the Steelers defense and what they would always do. You hear Belichick talk about it too. They'd be like, they run that whole cover 3 type of defense. And what cover 3 basically does, it's a great way to stop, it's a great coverage against a passing attack that likes to, get the ball out quick, short underneath. You have your guys underneath to make the tackle, so you're not going to be able to run crossers against them, which a lot of times New England would like to do. Whether it's Edelman and Amendola running across the middle, you have guys in zone who will step up and make the tackle. But those Steelers games, if you remember, those are games in which Rob Gronkowski would go off. And what beats cover 3 is hitting the seams. Because cover 3 is when you have 3 safeties back. Well, not safeties, but 3 defensive backs pretty much playing the role of a safety, splitting the back half of the field in 2/3. Cover 3. 3 guys deep. 3 deep. Okay? So if you split the field into thirds, really, if you hit a seam right around a little bit outside of the hash, inside the numbers, there's spot between those 2 defensive backs. What the middle third and the left third, or the middle third and the right third, that is where guys like Rob Gronkowski would eat. And in the AFC Championship game against the Steelers, guys like Hogan would eat. And in the 2004 AFC Championship game, Deion Branch would eat. Because Patriots know how to beat a cover 3. And they would be like, okay, you want to just sit up there and think you're just going to stop whatever we've been doing? We're an offense that morphs and adapts. We're just going to hit you right down the seam. So cover 3, Brady would have all the time in the world because they wouldn't rush more than 3 or 4. Boom, boom, boom. Easy pickings. They throw the ball over 60% of the time against the Steelers, and then there they go. And then in 2018, they changed. They morphed. They went man-to-man. They started blitzing. They started pressuring. And they had guys in the secondary that could play man-to-man. You don't want to play cover 3 all the time and be... Pittsburgh was forced to because of the personnel that they had. And then they started getting the personnel where they could play man coverage and they could get home rushing 4. Because you don't want to play man coverage if you don't have defensive backs that can hold up in one-on-one coverage. And you don't want to play man coverage if you don't have guys in the front 7 that can also get to the quarterback. Because no matter who you have, it could be Darrelle Revis in his prime, you can't cover a wide receiver for 6 seconds. So if you're not getting pressure, you're not going to be able to play man-to-man coverage, or it's not going to work effectively. That all changed in 2018. That defense changed. And you saw it morph into the defense that you saw in 2020, where I think that defense was really, really good. So you got a defense moving forward if you're Pittsburgh, but what about the quarterback? That's the question I have. Okay, who's going to be the quarterback? Who do you trust moving forward? Is it time to draft a quarterback to succeed Big Ben? Big Ben, is he the tutoring type of guy? I don't know. These are all questions. But first things first, how are they going to fare in the 2021 campaign? That's a question for segment 4. And we're about to hit a commercial. And the question for segment 3 will be, what do you think of the new rule change about players now able to be wearing single digits? Well, I know my favorite player of all time hates it. Let's find out about that in segment 3 right after the break.
Tired of searching the vast jungle of podcasts? Now listen close and hear this out. There's a podcast network that covers just about everything that you've been searching. Hey! The Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network is here. Nothing less than a podcast bliss with endless hours of podcast coverage. From news, sports, music, fashion, cooking, entertainment, fantasy, football, and so much more. So stop lurking around and go straight out to the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. Guaranteed to fill that podcast itch. Whatever it may be. Visit us at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Follow us on Facebook and Twitter, and download us on iTunes, SoundCloud, and Google Play.
Welcome back from the break. So in segment 1 and 2, we talked a little bit about head coaches. In the first segment, we talked about head coach Bill Belichick. He wanted out in New England after the 2017 campaign, in which he was forced to trade Jimmy Garoppolo. He didn't like that very much. The next segment, we talked about the Pittsburgh Steelers extending head coach Mike Tomlin for 3 years. And we basically talked about, was it the right move? Because there's 2 factors you need to take into consideration. It is the what have you done for me lately argument, and it is who is better available out there as your replacement. And we have come to the conclusion that although the what have you done for me lately is not entirely impressive for Mike Tomlin, the substitution choice is even less impressive. There are not many folks who could adequately replace Mike Tomlin And so we came to the conclusion, good move for Pittsburgh. And to discuss where Pittsburgh will land in the final standings projections for Andrew DeCino's rankings, stay tuned for segment 4. But until then, we will be talking about the quarterback of the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, Thomas Edward Patrick Brady Jr. And so the NFL passed a rule proposal. We talked about this about 2 weeks ago, about the proposal of the rule change, which was basically it'll expand jersey number options for certain positions, which could, the Chiefs were the ones who proposed it because they had an issue with not having enough numbers, and they had retired a lot of numbers, and during training camps when their rosters were 90 plus, they just didn't have numbers to give to people because certain positions could only wear certain numbers, and so then that kind of forces your hand, and you're literally on a crunch for numbers. So the new rule change now allows for defensive backs to wear numbers number 1 through 49. It allows running backs, fullbacks, tight ends, halfbacks, wide receivers to wear numbers 1 through 49 and 80 through 89. It allows offensive linemen to wear 50 through 79. It allows defensive linemen to wear 50 through 79 and 90 through 99. And it allows linebackers to wear 1 through 59 and 50 through 99. So, excuse me, that last one was 90 through 99 for the linebackers. So what does this mean? It means that we could see linebackers wearing number 1. We could see defensive backs wearing number 4. We could see a safety wearing number 5. A lot of funky numbers here. And of course, it's going to make, the rule proposal when the Chiefs proposed it, it was like, it'll create more fun. Let guys wear the numbers they want to wear. Go back to their college days when you had guys like Jabril Peppers wearing number 5. So that was half of it. The other half was, like the aforementioned, running out of numbers. This was going to solve that issue. So, what is the Super Bowl champion and Super Bowl MVP think about this? Well, number 12, Tom Brady, posted on Instagram after the rule change was, ratified. Good luck trying to block the right people now. Going to make for a lot of bad football. So, I agree. It's more complicated to an extent. You watch film all week, and that will help the lineman and the quarterback decipher who is who. But let's say it's in the heat of the moment, and you're a center, you're trying to identify who's coming on a blitz and who's not, and you see a guy kind of close to the line of scrimmage, in this, let's say this was last year, and he's wearing 23. Like, okay, that guy's a safety right there. 23 is a defensive back. All right, so that could be added pressure right there. He's coming down into the box. Because in the heat of the moment, you might not realize that, 23 is, Patrick Chung coming in there. But then, nowadays, with this rule proposal change, let's say you see a guy creeping up, and he's wearing number 2 now. Well, how do you know if this is Anthony Hitchens or, Tyrann Mathieu or Rashad Fenton or Charvarius Ward, or Juan Thornhill, they're all wearing single digits. How are you to distinguish quickly if that guy is a linebacker who's normally supposed to be there, or if he is going to be a guy from the secondary dropping down? Because that changes everything. Because if there's a linebacker right there, he's supposed to be there. But if he's not, this is everything happens so fast in football. Now this is requiring an extra thought process to go through your head. I'm a lineman. I am looking up. I see number 54 about 4 yards in front of me. I know he's supposed to be there. But what if that number 54, that linebacker, is wearing number 5? It now has to register through my head. Okay, he is a linebacker. He's supposed to be there. But what if that's Jabril Peppers instead? No, now he's going to be adding pressure. He's not supposed to be there. He's now in the box. That changes everything for me. And so, yes, you watch film all week, and you should be able to know number 5 is going to be Jabril Peppers. I should know that in my head. I'm a football player. This is my job to know the players. But in the heat of the moment, sometimes you just don't know that. So that's what Tom Brady's posting about on Instagram. He's saying it's going to make for a lot of bad football. You saw what happened to the Kansas City Chiefs. They couldn't block anyone in the Super Bowl. And so it made for a lot of bad football for them. And if you're a Tampa Bay Buccaneers fan, it was awesome. But if you were a fan of football, the Chiefs really just weren't competitive on offense because they couldn't block anyone. And you had Mahomes running around everywhere because they couldn't block anyone. And so that's bad football. If you can't block, you can't execute anything. So this is an old man yelling at sky like Mike Florio might try and claim. Although Mike Florio is literally your old man yelling at the sky. Yelling at the clouds, get out of my way. And so Mike Florio has been called that so many times, he tries to take that out on Tom Brady. It's exactly what he does. He has literally been made fun of for being old man yelling at the sky. So he writes an article about Tom Brady saying, yeah, Tom Brady basically wants us to get off his lawn. This is a legitimate complaint, Mr. Florio. Okay? Legitimate complaint. Because I'm sure you're one of the people who are saying, well, if Brady and Mahomes switched offensive lines, let's see who would have won the game. Well, do you want everyone to have now a worse blocking offensive line? You even said, if the guy who's wearing number 25 and who seems to be ready for a blitz is a linebacker or a defensive back, you just don't know. So it's harder for the quarterback. It's harder for the offensive line. And in turn, it's harder for everyone on the offense. This is just a major advantage for the defense. Not just for the pass blockers and the quarterback at a disadvantage. Think about the wide receivers for all the different routes and plays they might run on the fly or that they change at the line of scrimmage. For all those years in New England, Tom Brady would point, he'd look around at his wide receivers, he'd tap his helmet basically saying, I'm changing the play, or he'd give a little, hand signal for changing the route, and you'd see guys like Julian and Amendola, they tap their helmet saying, yes, we register, we're on the same page here, and then they would change the route accordingly. When Brady's been mic'd up, he's looked at Jules before and said, hey, if those two are hot, then your route changes. He'll say, 35 and 52, and he'll point. He'll have the two fingers and point, And that it's also on them to understand and realize who's coming on the blitz and who is not. So, yeah, it makes it harder for everyone. Not just the quarterback and pass blockers. So, it's one of those pro-cons. Do you think it's more valuable to have players have a fun time and get to choose their numbers? Or would you rather have better blocking on the offensive side of the football. Now, I'll be honest, when I recorded this 2 weeks ago, talking about the rule proposal, I was firmly in the camp of this is going to be fun. But I'm open-minded enough to know that when someone might have more information than me, might be more knowledgeable, not even might, just objectively more knowledgeable than me, objectively more knowledgeable than you or Mike Florio or anyone out there, it's Tom Brady, who's played this game for 20 years, coming to his conclusion that it will make for poor football. So it seems as if he doesn't have any other motivation to say this besides he thinks that it will lead to poor football. And in fact, Bill Belichick, his former head coach, the Patriots voted against the rule proposal change. So maybe Bill Belichick thinks the same thing as well, that it might be harder. So now him and Brady are back on the same page. So I changed my opinion because I think Tom Brady knows more than me. And he says it's going to make for a lot of bad football. We'll see when the season starts, but I don't think we'll see too much because you have to buy out your inventory for this year if you decide to change your number. You have to buy out your inventory. Next year, you don't need to. But this year, you do. I don't know how many players are willing to fork out the money literally just to change your number for fun. You're changing your number for fun. Let's remember, this is what this is if you're a player. And to fork out all that money to change it for fun, I don't know. I personally wouldn't, but there's already been players out there who have changed their number. And one of those players was Patrick Peterson. He's going to wear number 7. Again, he was number 21. Now he's going to wear number 7. Yeah, Patrick Peterson, he's made his money. He's been a star in this league. So I'm sure he can afford to buy out his inventory. But to me, no matter how much money you've earned, like if you're Patrick Peterson, it just kind of seems silly to spend that money, which to me just seems like, I don't know why. What's the point? Why not just wait one more year? And then you can get it for free. Literally just this year is the only time you have to buy out your inventory. Now, granted, Patrick Peterson is, to this date, I guess, made $94.7 million. So that's not bad. So, I assume he can buy out his inventory. But that, okay, whatever. To each their own. I've harped on that long enough. But, this goes back to Tom Brady hating the rule change. If Tom Brady hates it, I believe him. I believe it will lead for bad football. Now, I'm sure that Brady will be prepared and he'll get the Buccaneers prepared. And Bruce Arians has said that he is going to whip their you-know-whats into shape in training camp. But I could see his point. You don't know who to block. In the heat of the moment, you don't. And then Julian Edelman responded, photoshopping the number pi. Of course, we know 3.141597, so on and so forth. Number goes on and on and on and on. So he photoshopped the number pi onto Tom Brady's jersey, saying, you are playing, eternally, so why not choose a number that goes on eternally? And then so Tom Brady, of course, responded saying, are you buttering me up because, so that you can play for me down in Tampa Bay? And then Julian was like, yes, I'm buttering you up. So I found that to be a cute little exchange between Julian and Tom. But however, we talked about this last week. I don't think Julian is going anywhere. You don't give that speech in Gillette Stadium and say Foxborough forever and produce all this merchandise saying Foxborough forever to go to Tampa Bay. And the difference is Rob Gronkowski, he never had that press conference. He never had that farewell. And he stopped playing pretty much because he was unhappy and his body. Gronk's body was something that could, that we all knew would probably do better after a year off. Julian, with his age and his knees that they say has degenerative meniscus, probably is not something that's going to get a whole lot better. Probably it'll get a whole lot better for living your day-to-day life over the course of a year. But in terms of football-wise, no, I think Julian is Foxborough forever. Going back to the rule change, though, if these guys want to change their number, so be it. I think we won't see a ton changed for this upcoming season just because of having to buy out your inventory. But the following season, open the floodgates, right? Open the floodgates. So, could you imagine if they let Tom Brady wear pie? You see the pie symbol on his jersey. I remember when Tom Brady came to Tampa Bay, right? Chris Godwin was wearing number 12. Tom Brady said, I'll change my number to number 7 because I want to win 7 Super Bowls. I think he was thinking about it. And then after that, would he have changed his number to 8? And then if he wanted again, would he have changed it to 9 and then kept going until he reached 12 again? Could you imagine that? Changes it to 7, wins number 7. Changes it to 8, wins 8. Changes it to 9, wins 9. 10, wins 10. So quickly, before we move on to the next and final segment, how long will Tom Brady play? We just managed to stumble upon this question. Well, I think Rich Eisen said it best. Tom Brady's gone to 10 Super Bowls. He is 7-3. I think he wants to go to 12 for TB12. But let's say he goes to 12 and then he wins number 8 and 9. Wouldn't you want to see him get to 10? Do something like Yogi did. Fill up every finger of your hand with a Super Bowl ring. Get to number 10. So that's one of those things. Either he gets to 12 Super Bowl appearances, and if with 12 comes ring 9, then I think he'll go to number 10 for Super Bowl rings. And at this point, we're assuming that Tom Brady's just going to be there every single year, and he's going to come close to winning it. And, of course, knock on wood for anything, don't want anything bad to happen, but these aren't horribly inaccurate thoughts to be having, because the way that offense and defense was rocking for the last 8 games last year, they're only going to get better. And think about what he did for New England for 20 years. They were literally always there. Since how many AFC championship games in a row? 2011, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18. I think 8 AFC championship games in a row. Since 2014 went to the Super Bowl. 2015 AFC championship game. Or 2014 they won, excuse me. Then 2015 AFC championship game. 2016 they won. 2017 lost in the Super Bowl. 2018 they won. I mean, it's literally Super Bowl or winning championships or losing the championship game. That might be where the Tampa Bay Buccaneers fall for the next couple of years. Mark my words. Well, you want to know how the Tampa Bay Buccaneers will fare in 2021? You won't find that out, but if you want to find out about the final standings for the AFC, way too early projections, stick around for segment 4 right after the commercial break.
This is your ultimate stop for everything sports. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Should I say more? From the NFL, MLB, the NBA to MMA, it's all in here. The Golden State Media Concepts Sports Podcast. Listen now.
Hello and welcome back for our fourth and final segment of this lovely Tuesday for you. I hope you are having a good one and enjoying the airwaves that I am transmitting into your ear holes, some might say. It's a very eloquent way I put it, but you know, a podcast as eloquent as this, that's, you know, my only option for you. So let's get right into it. You know, in the first segment, we talked about Bill Belichick up to his old shenanigans, threatening to leave New England a few years ago, so on and so forth. Now, another coach that is staying in Pittsburgh, that was segment 2. That's Mike Tomlin. He got extended. Segment 3, we talked about Tommy Brady and how he did not like the rule change of players being able to wear a much wider range of numbers. Thinks it's going to result in some bad football being played. Segment number 4, we're going to have a little bit of fun. We're going to talk about the AFC division standings, final standings, way too early final standings projections in the AFC. So let's start, let's just get right into it. Let's start with the AFC East. Of course, you got the Bills, Dolphins, Patriots, Jets. Jets have the second overall pick this year. Everyone thinks they're going to get Zach Wilson. Patriots made all those moves in free agency. Getting Hunter Henry, Jonnu Smith, Nelson Aguilar, Kendrick Bourne. But the quarterback's still Cam Newton. Now, I think a lot of Patriot fans are still reserving hope that the quarterback won't be Cam Newton and that they're going to maybe make some draft day trade, which, by the way, is coming up this Thursday, that might send Garoppolo somehow to New England, or they trade up and get Justin Fields or Mac Jones or Trey Lance, whichever one is around, or whoever they trade up to get into position for that. But they did add a lot in free agency. The Dolphins, we all know, rolled with a dual threat quarterback. And no, I'm not talking about running and passing. I'm talking about Fitzpatrick and Tagovailoa. That was the dual threat. It was the baseball scheme they talked about. Tagovailoa to start. The closer, Fitzpatrick, comes in to take control and to seal the deal for the Dolphins. This year, we all know it's no Fitzpatrick anymore, and it's just going to be Tua. It's Tua time down in Miami, permanently. So they will see what they have in Tua heading into his second year. And then, of course, the Bills, they are the reigning AFC East champion after so long without capturing that title. 13-3 in the 2020 campaign. Josh Allen, at this point, seems like he'll be entering MVP talks for many years to come. He has such a wide range of talent and ability that not many quarterbacks have in this league. So my final standing projections for the AFC East are as follows. And I don't think they have changed from 2020. The Buffalo Bills will win the division. I probably think somewhere around 12-4 to 14-2. Maybe the low end 11-5, but I really don't see that. The only reason that would make me say that is they are now playing a first place schedule. But it's a first place schedule against teams that they know how to handle. They will play Pittsburgh because of that. They will play Tennessee because of that. They'll play Kansas City because of that. Those are three teams they already played last year based off of their second place schedule. So this does not change at all for Buffalo. So I will actually just go right out on a limb and say, oh, well, of course, 17 games now. How foolish of me. I'll go out and say 13-4. But they'll go 13-3, and let's say they have their playoff positioning locked up. So 13-3, not carrying the last week and wanting to get a quote-unquote bye week, which I think a lot of teams might now start to do if you want, because there's only one bye week for a playoff team now, and that's the first seed. So let's say they know they're not going to get the first seed. They're locked in for the second or third seed. Rest in that final game. That's pretty much your bye week. That's a thought. The Dolphins will finish second place, potentially making the playoffs. I will say they won't, though. They will come close. I think they'll go 10-7, and they will fail to make the playoffs. Patriots, I will go with 8-9 is how they will finish. They will win one more game than the year prior. And then the Jets, somewhere like 4-13 seems reasonable to me. Now let's move to the Northern Division. Pittsburgh was reigning champion, of course. They were reigning champions. We talked about in the previous segments how Mike Tomlin is now back. But our question was, what can this team do realistically with Big Ben out of shape? Arm not very good, but the defense is good. You lose, you lose Big Ben, and then what happens? I mean, they started off 11-0 last year. On the offensive side of the ball, I don't think they're wowing you. They definitely aren't wowing you. So Steelers is very interesting. Ravens, of course, you got Lamar Jackson. He won MVP 2 years ago. They have gotten thwarted in the playoffs when Lamar seems to kind of clench up, not play how I've seen Lamar play in the regular season. Got the Bengals and Joey Burrow. He's coming back off that knee surgery. Let's see how he was really good before the knee surgery. I think he'll do just fine. And then Cleveland, we talked about previously in the show, they stomped the Steelers in their wild card affair. So my final standings for the AFC North are as follows. Cleveland wins the division. Congratulations, the Cleveland Browns are division champions. They go 12-5. 12-5 division champions. Then the next place team is going to be the Bengals. They make the playoffs. They go 11-6. And they make the playoffs. Next after that, the Baltimore Ravens. They just missed the playoffs. They finished the same record as the Dolphins. They're 10-7. And then the Steelers will finish 9-8. So, again, 12, 11, 10, 9 in order of wins. Browns, Bengals, Ravens, Steelers. My AFC North standings. And again, Browns win it. Bengals wild card. Now, let's go to the South. AFC South. A lot going on there. what's going on with Deshaun Watson? Do we ask this question every single week? Because I think we do. What is going on with Deshaun Watson? It seems like the story has taken a bit of a pause now as the investigation is ongoing. I don't know what will happen with Deshaun Watson, but Deshaun Watson played for the Texans last year, and they didn't do very well. They need help on the offensive side of the football. They need help on the defensive side of the football. J.J. Watt apologized to Deshaun Watson for wasting part of his NFL career on such a dismal season. The Jaguars, of course, have the first overall pick. They are going to get Trevor Lawrence. They have Urban Meyer as their head coach. How are they going to look in the 2021 NFL season? Who knows? The Colts, they made the playoffs, but they lost to the Bills with Phillip Rivers. Now they have Carson Wentz, who Skip Bayless and I like to call Carson Wentz because of his injury history. And then, of course, you have the Tennessee Titans with Mike Vrabel doing planks on the sideline. So in the South, my final standings are as follows. The Titans win it. The Colts are in second. The Jags are in third. The Texans finish last. And, of course, I'll put an asterisk here. What happens with Deshaun Watson? I could see if Deshaun Watson plays and somehow they make some kind of moves, the Texans could jump to 2 in the division. I don't know. And I think the Colts are very interesting too. I am very, very hesitant putting them 2. As I'm speaking, I want to switch the Colts and the Jaguars, but I just don't have enough to do it because I don't see... I'm going to do it. I'm going to go out on a limb, and I'm just going to... Right now, I'm going to switch it. I have all these notes written up. I'm switching it. I'm saying, screw the notes. Titans win it. Jaguars second. Colts third. Texans fourth. With the asterisk being with the Texans, of course, Deshaun Watson. So I think the Titans will finish, I'll say 12-5, just like the Browns. I think the Colts will, no, I said Jaguars number 2. Jaguars will go 10-7. But because of tiebreakers, they get a playoff spot. Yeah, I'll say they get a playoff spot. They get to the wild card. Jaguars with Trevor Lawrence get to the wild card. Colts, like 7-10. And then the Texans, I'll go with like 5-12. So to recap right now, as we're 75% of the way through the AFC, Bills, division winners, they make the playoffs, of course. Titans, division winner, they make the playoffs. Browns, division winner, they make the playoffs. So far, I have 2 out of the 3 wildcard teams being the Jaguars and the Bengals. Jaguars and the Bengals. Dolphins were 10-7. They missed it. Ravens were 10-7. They missed it. And although the Jaguars were 10-7, they made it tiebreaker. Let's get to the AFC West. I hope you're keeping this all straight in your head. I barely am. Okay, let's talk about this right here. This is probably the most controversial I have. Actually, maybe the AFC North may be the most controversial because I have the Browns winning it and the Steelers finishing last, okay? But in the West, the Chiefs, you know what you're getting with the Chiefs here. They went to the Super Bowl 2 years in a row. I'm sure people think they'll go 3 years in a row. The Chargers, they have their guy. They have their guy in Justin Herbert. The Broncos, they are not sure if they have their guy in Drew Lock. I really don't think so. They might get a quarterback for all we know. And then the Raiders, boy, oh boy, Derek Carr, John Gruden. Remember a few years ago, John Gruden signed that 10-year, $100 million contract with the Raiders? They need to sort something out and fast. And this is my projection. Chiefs win the division and they go 13-4, just like the Buffalo Bills. Same record. Those two will be competing for the first seed in the conference based off of tiebreak. Chargers will finish second, and they will capture the last wildcard spot at 11 and what does it make? 11-6. Broncos will go 8-9, and the Raiders will go 3-14. Derek Carr will get injured. I'm sorry. I hope to not predict or wish injury onto anyone. So let's just say he stinks so badly he gets benched. And Marcus Mariota goes in and whatever, stuff hits the fan. Long story short, they get the number 1 overall pick, the Raiders do. But there's enough excuse to not fire John Gruden. And he's pretty much on the hot seat with the number 1 overall pick, with his last chance heading into 2022, saying, let's see what you can do now with the number 1 overall pick, John Gruden. But the Chiefs finish 1, Chargers 2, Broncos 3, Raiders last. So in the AFC, to sum it all up, I don't think the Bills are... You know what? F it. Bills, first seed in the conference. Chiefs, 2 seed. Browns, 3 seed. Titans, 4 seed. Bengals, 5 seed. Chargers, 6 seed. Jaguars, 7 seed. Those are my final standings in the AFC. Tweet me if you disagree, because this is fact, not fiction. This is not my fan fiction for final standings in the AFC. No, it is not. But yeah, sorry, Jets. Zach Wilson, you're going to not do too well. Actually, you might do well, but you're just not going to get more than like 4 wins. I mean, the Bills are going to sweep you. The Dolphins are in all likelihood going to sweep you. I mean, the Patriots, they still have Bill Belichick, and you're a rookie quarterback. They're probably going to do pretty well against you. I would not be surprised if you lost 6 games to the AFC East. If you went 0-6 against the AFC East. Jets, sorry. Texans, I put the asterisk next to you because of Deshaun Watson. I mean, I could see them going 5-12, or I could see them going 10-7. Not much in between there. Yeah, I just don't think they have the talent, even with Deshaun Watson, to get it done. The Raiders, we just kind of went over this. I think this might be... They've been in between rebuilding and reloading for quite a while now. They are like the AFC's version of the Falcons, in my opinion. Because I think they have a pretty good football team. I think Derek Carr is not their solution for quarterback, but I think he plays well enough and doesn't turn the ball over where you don't want to move on from him. But Derek Carr, just in my opinion, is not the type of guy that's going to, straight up win you football games over and over, or he'll crawl you out of a 3-touchdown deficit or whatever. He's like an elite game manager. Just doesn't turn the ball over, completes high percentage of his passes, so on and so forth. And then the Steelers, I put them at 9-8 out of respect for Mike Tomlin because he hasn't had a losing record, and I don't think he will. But they'll finish last, and I think the AFC North will be the most competitive division, and it makes sense. Browns are great. Bengals, I think that's I might have the Bengals higher up than anyone else, but I think Joe Burrow is really good. And you got T. Higgins, and you got A.J. Green, I think last time I checked. You got, probably might draft Jamar Chase. That could be cool. Teammates reuniting. Bengals, I stand by that. But yeah, Steelers finishing last. I'm sorry, Pittsburgh fans. 9-8 is not a horrible record, but that's just how you're going to finish, in my opinion. So those are the AFC final standings. And I'd say there's maybe just a few controversial ones, but I'll back it up. Tweet me. Let's talk about it. Let's talk about it. Let's have a conversation, you and I, about this. See where we stand. Yeah, go ahead, tweet me. Beat me. Reach me. Say what you want about me. I don't even know where I was going with that. But all I know is that I hope you're going to have a great Tuesday. And make sure to tweet me and say hello. And to thank your ears for following along on this journey with us. And with that, I would like to say thank you for listening to the GSMC Football Podcast, brought to you by the GSMC Podcast Network. I would like to ask that you please remember to subscribe to the show and write a nice review. That really helps us out. Also, if you can please follow us on Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. Thank you. And have a fantastic Tuesday. All right. Hit the ad.
You've been listening to the Golden State Media Concepts Football Podcast, part of the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network. You can find this show and others like it at www.gsmcpodcast.com. Download our podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, SoundCloud, and Google Play. Just type in GSMC to find all the shows from the Golden State Media Concepts Podcast Network, from movies to music, from sports to entertainment, and even weird news. You can also follow us on Twitter and on Facebook. Thank you, and we hope you have enjoyed today's program.